Let's get some insight from Michael O'Hanlon. He's Foreign Policy Program Director at the Brookings Institute. Good to see you, Michael. And kind of to repeat a little bit, we talked to Kevin Book last hour, who thinks that, I guess if I had to sum up his thoughts, he would say the stock market is right to view this as signs of progress, but the oil markets still have a problem in terms of some shortages and imbalances. And I don't know if you would agree with his or the market's assessment on the diplomatic front.
Hi, Kelly. Well, I'm not sure I do agree that the stock market should recover or, evidence optimism. I think that we've known for a while President Trump is interested in not having this war affect the global economy or the American economy any more than necessary, even though he sometimes articulated goals about regime change and unconditional surrender that imply a longer operation. And so the fact that he's putting forth a 15-point proposal that basically reiterates what he was demanding of Iran before the war began is not big news to me, and is not necessarily a meaningful step towards an end of the war. So I guess I'd put myself down as a skeptic on whether this is really progress.
What would show you that there was maybe something more substantive happening?
Well, any kind of favorable response or even any kind of substantive response whatsoever from Iran, which basically is not in a mood to negotiate. As General McChrystal told the New York Times, I think yesterday, if we kill somebody's family, probably not in a mood to negotiate the next day. I'm paraphrasing, but the basic point: Iran wants revenge. And Iran wants to reestablish deterrence, meaning to remind the world that they can hurt us. And just because the United States and Israel control most of the skies over Iran, it doesn't mean that we really dominate everything. They've got asymmetric and guerrilla-like capabilities in the Strait of Hormuz that they've already used to great effect, which sort of mimic in a way the way they fight on land with, covert activity and improvised explosive devices and assassinations. And they're going to try to use this kind of warfare to make us pay a price for a while, I believe, so that if and when there is a negotiation, they will have first shown the world not to trifle with Iran in the future. And they're also going to insist on better terms on at least some of the issues that were included in President Trump's 15-point plan. Again, I don't blame Mr. Trump for doing this, but I don't really see it as progress.
Hey, Michael, it's Dom here. One of the countries that has been maybe relatively not as vocal as they could have been during this process in the Iran war has been China. They have made their remarks, and their state media has kind of weighed in from time to time here. But we just got news in the last few minutes here that the White House has announced that Trump will meet with President Xi in China May 13th and 14th, and the reciprocal visit will happen sometime later on down the line. I wonder if this dynamic at all is something that we have to be watching, whether or not the China situation adds another variable, especially with a face-to-face meeting that's happening. Do we expect that that has any kind of influence or timing on when the war hypothetically might start to wind down?
Greetings, Dom. Well, I think that's a good way to put it. Yes, it does imply that in President Trump's mind, this war will be over by then, I would think. I mean, I obviously don't know that for a fact, but the president presumably wouldn't go to Beijing if he had the end game in Iran still on his mind and still in great flux, because, of course, he chose to postpone this particular previously scheduled trip, given that the war was ongoing. So I think he is assuming that in the course of April, let's say, I don't hold that much hope for this war ending in March, that we can figure out some way. But I think it is good news, nonetheless, that Beijing and Washington are prepared to try to put this Iran issue and the Ukraine issue to one side and still maintain as much of a cooperative, maybe not friendly, but cooperative relationship as they can.